Ready? Good evening. Good evening. We will be conducting tonight's meeting here in City Council chambers as well as virtually using Zoom. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Pastor Sharkey will be giving the invocation this evening, so if he'd like to come up, and Mayor Carl Skint will begin the meeting immediately after the invocation.
Good evening. Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you that you love us and call us your children, and we thank you that it is you alone that could bring this unique group of people together for the benefit of our citizens. And so, Lord, we would pray for our mayor. We would pray for our city council and all those in the city with authority and responsibility. Heavenly Father, we pray that you'd give them special insight, wisdom from above. Father God, we pray that you would bless their families. Lord, strengthen their families and thus strengthen our city. Finally, Lord, we would tell you thank you. Thank you, Heavenly Father, that you brought a man like Bill Lawrenson into our lives. He's an honorable man who proved himself 100 times and 100 times again in service to our city. Heavenly Father, comfort the men and the women, the family and friends who feel the loss of his passing. Then, Lord, we would ask that you would bless this meeting today. Bless this meeting as it's a blessing to you, to every man, woman, or child in our city. Heavenly Father, we ask these things in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God bless Lincoln. God bless America. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Welcome to the City of Lincoln. This is the regular meeting of the City Council, the Lincoln Redevelopment Successor Agency, and the Lincoln Public Financing Authority meeting for November 12th, 2024. I call this meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Andriotta.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Joyner.
Here.
And Mayor Carl Skint.
Here. Report from closed session. Council report.
Thank you, Mayor Carl Skint. We met in closed session to discuss negotiations with real property negotiator, but there is no reportable action.
Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. This will be led by Jennifer Brown, our Chief Innovation and Technology Officer. Allegiance to the flag of the United States. Next item on the agenda is agenda modifications. Does anyone from the council wish to modify the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Anyone from staff?
No, Mayor.
None. We'll go to the next item. The next item is presentation. I will ask this body to take a moment at this time to honor the memory of two elected officers from our region that have unexpectedly passed away since our last council meeting. Bill Lawrenson, our colleague on the city council during the last term, and El Dorado County Supervisor John Hydell, who served with three of us on the Pioneer Board over 7 years. Please think of the fragileness of life and remember them and their community service over the next minute or so. Thank you for honoring them. Matt? you
Yeah.
have comments?
Thank you, Mayor. So at this time, Christine and I, Bill's wife Anna is here tonight, and we have a number of things we'd like to give her. I'm not going to go into a lengthy discussion about Bill. I think that's best served for his celebration of life. But what I will say on behalf of staff is that we're going to miss him. Christine and I in particular will miss his Thursdays at 9 meeting, which he was at every other week, religiously for pretty much probably 4 years. And there are things he's left behind. One of the things when I was hired here that was really important to him, such quoted in a number of articles, was trying to get our fire department up to some reasonable staffing level, which we've achieved. And then, of course, he was super passionate about the Titan missile remediation. And were it not for that group and Bill's efforts, we would probably still be waiting versus where we are today. So I'm going to keep it brief. We're going to miss him, and our condolences to him and his family. What we're going to give, I'm just going to share real quick. The flag that we're going to present is the flag that was flying over City Hall the day that Bill passed. There's a flower arrangement, and then we also have a plaque that we actually already had ordered for his last meeting that commemorates his service, as well as his headshot, and we'll include his name placards, which we usually give to outgoing council members. And Anna, if you'd like to say a couple words, the mic's there.
Thank you, Sean and Christine. And for those that supported my husband. I have received an enormous amount of private messages, emails, and calls showing gratitude for Bill's service in the city, such as, I quote, "Bill was an outstanding council member who always served with courage and put his constituents first above inner politics. He was a real leader." Another said, "Bill was a guy with guts to stand up confronting those who didn't value democracy." Another said, "He contributed so much to our country and to our community." I have received condolences from Bill's Department of State workers, especially the Congressional Bureau, and co-workers in Washington, D.C. as well. On the Tuesday before he passed away, we had planned to leave on our first anniversary staycation in Sacramento, and I asked him to skip the firefighter's badge pinning because I wanted to beat traffic. And I wanted our fun to start as soon as possible. I told him, "Bill, skip this one, honey. Others will show up. You don't have to go to each one." He responded, "But it's my way of showing respect for their line of duty and to thank them in advance for the work they do for the city." I had no choice but to patiently wait until he got home. That was Bill Larston. I can count in one hand how many times he missed a council meeting, and it was due to illness. Yesterday evening, a fire truck came to my home and brought me a bouquet of flowers and a beautiful card. They expressed deep appreciation for Bill's support. That was Bill. Bill wasn't a threat to this community, as printed in the Lincoln News Messenger on February 16th, which is quoting from the council meeting on the 13th that week. He could never damage the city's reputation as he was accused of. There was no prominent business owner that my husband berated or antagonized, as stated in the report. Bill couldn't kill a fly. He was wrongly accused of being a danger to the public that he worked so hard for and loved so much. Bill didn't create an unsafe work environment for the city staff. Other than meeting Sean every 2 weeks, he was hardly here. My sweet Bill, my loving husband, passed away in his sleep on October 31st. I received nearly 1,000 condolences publicly and privately, and I'm thankful for that. For those that targeted him, bullied him, and tried to strip him of his dignity and respect, may you make peace with your God. Nita, Chief Alf, is not here, Christine and Sean, Bill handpicked you to be our guest at the most important day of his life, and that was our wedding. Christine, Bill had deep respect for you. He truly had a soft heart, spot in his heart for you. Sean, Bill considered you a friend and truly loved you. For those that cared for my sweet Bill, respected him, and supported him, you have my love and admiration for life. Thank you.
Agenda, which is public comment on our agenda items, items that are not on the agenda. I have 5 cards from the public. You're requested to put cards in, but you don't have to. You have 3 minutes to speak, and understand that the city council can't take action or really discussion on these items, but may put them on a future agenda. First name that I have is Brian Faircloth.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Saddened to hear about the death of your council member. But my name is Brian Faircloth. My colleagues and I live in Placer County. I specifically live in Roseville, California. We are volunteers with United Sovereigns Americans. We're not spokespersons. United Sovereigns Americans is a nationwide organization with tens of thousands of active volunteers in over 20 states and growing. Today, we come to you as concerned citizens sharing alarming information about our state's voter roll database. Research of the state's voter roll database was done through hundreds of hours of research conducted by highly qualified and credentialed data teams. An analysis of the 2022 election researched by the highly qualified data teams using only official data provided by California election officials indicates serious issues with compliance with federal law. We are here to present to you and the public the results of the aforementioned analysis showing the votes cast, counted, and certified may not be all valid and accurate. Under the Constitution and under the law, we are not here to cast any blame or aspersions on any elected officials. We do not suggest any candidates in any race have wrongly won or lost their races, nor do we advocate for overturning or rerunning any past elections. Tonight, we will present you with the resolution demanding an end to the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections, along with a summary of our findings that apply. Though you bear no direct responsibility for anything in the electoral process, we come to you, our closest elected representatives, for support and action. We're asking that you listen to the resolution and take the necessity for valid elections seriously by adding the resolution to your next council meeting agenda. Our next 3 speakers will read the resolution in 3 parts, followed by our final speaker, which will conclude our presentation. And I might say, anybody that is viewing this on video, you can follow along with the resolution if you go to Unite, the number 4 freedom.com. That's Unite, number 4 freedom.com, and you can follow along the resolution.
I'm sorry. The second name I got is Brian Brubaker. I might have a question since you're all talking the same thing. You have a hard copy of the, okay, would you please give it to the city clerk? Okay, Brian?
Mayor, city council members, my condolences to you all and the family members. My name is Brian Brubaker, and I'm a resident here in Lincoln. I'm here to read into the record the first portion of the USA Resolution. Resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. Whereas it is a recognized civil right of the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections. Whereas it is the duty of our election officials to guarantee our elections are accurate and free from distortion or manipulation. Whereas our constitutional system of representative government only works when the following four tenets of an election are upheld. Number one, the voter rolls must be accurate. National Voter Registration Act of 1993. Votes counted must be from eligible voters, U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendments, Section 2. Number three, the number of votes counted must equal the number of voters who voted. Number four, there can be no more than 1 in 125,000 ballots in error by the voting system. Help America Vote Act of 2002. Whereas the analysis of the California 2022 general election has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that appear to violate both federal law and state laws, including 5,886,198 ineligible or uncertain registration violations found within the California State Voter Roll Database, 2,776,993 votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrations, 123,785 apparent, more votes counted than voters who voted. No one knows who cast them. And 2,776,849 apparent voting violations in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election. Maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election was 90. Certification as defined by law is an attestation of accuracy and compliance. The certification of the 2022 election appears to have been fraudulent and illegal. Thank you.
Dan Braden.
I'm here. Good evening, Mayor and City
Good
Council
evening, Mayor.
members. My name is Dan Graydon. I'm here to continue reading into the record the next section of the U.S. resolution. To pick up where Brian left off, I have 3 more whereas, and then we'll get into the call of action. So whereas these findings trample legal accuracy requirements of the voting system during our federal elections, whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can be lawfully conducted. Whereas the 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of the guaranteed protections of our natural rights under the government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damage to our families, our ways of life, and the fabric of the United States. The call to action, therefore, we call upon the representatives to provide relief to the people and the assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 general election that upholds these existing laws, the equitable principles of laws including 1, proof of citizenship, identity, and eligibility required to register and vote, not anonymous attestations. 2, voter rolls certified accurate and available for public review and challenge 30 days before the start of early voting. Voters added after that date must bring proof of citizenship, identity, and address in person to qualified officials at each polling place. 3, hand-marked secure ballots similar to currency. Where imaging technology is used for tabulation, the security feature must be verifiable in the ballot image. 4, systems, machines, security measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with federal law. For fraud prevention regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation. And 5, adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witnesses after giving full and effective observation rights. Candidates and trained citizens must be allowed immediate access to ballots, ballot images, and cast vote records. Thank you.
Can't read your last name.
Burns. My name is Laura Burns. Mayor, Council, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm a resident of Placer County. I reside in Roseville. I am also a member of the United Sovereign American. I will continue with the resolution. Number 6, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations and systems must maintain end-to-end chain of custody from voter to vote count to final canvass, including auditability, witness transfer with paper records. Number 7, a National Institute of Standards and technology compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2 must be performed. These audits are to be conducted by a qualified, insured and bonded security, forensic or financial auditors, not personnel from within the election system. Reconciliation will include the vote count, real physical ballots, adjudication, cast vote records, ballot count, qualified voter count, custody transfer, and all other paper and electronic election systems, including logs. If the total of unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held in that state for those candidates affected, unless the issues can be provably corrected by a manual recount and a full review of records. Number 9, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration through certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately counted. Accurately recorded. Be it resolved that Lincoln City Council members stand in support with the concerns and remedies presented here. We implore the Placer Board of Supervisors, California Legislature, federal legislatures, law enforcement, federal and state prosecutors, judges, and both California Secretary of State and county registers of voters to cooperate and fulfill these firm requests of the people.
Final presenter is Robert Dibbins.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My sincere condolences for your loss. My name is Rob Dobbins, and I'm here to conclude our presentation. What you heard tonight is a powerfully written resolution outlining massive inaccuracies in our 2022 election from registration through certification. The resolution delineates meaningful remedies that will proactively protect the validity of the 2024 general election for all Americans. Your written copy cites many U.S. Supreme Court precedents and federal and constitutional mandates that support the need for such actions. Large numbers of Californians have questions about the trustworthiness of our elections. Official data show these concerns are valid, and the law says resolving them is essential in securing our liberty. The cost for not fixing the enumerated problems is immeasurable. So we urge you, put this resolution on the agenda for the next city council meeting where you can vote to join us in support of fair, honest, and valid elections. The United Sovereign Americans website showcases our initiatives nationwide and features some extremely informative election videos. We encourage you to visit uniteforfreedom.com and learn more about our nonpartisan organization and our goal to restore valid elections throughout our country. That's unite4freedom.com. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you for your presentation. If a city council member desires to place this on a future agenda, they will do it later in the meeting where that is done. So I appreciate it. Are there any other public comment?
I just, to clarify that, we have a section later in the agenda called council initiated business, and that would be the appropriate time for the council to discuss that, keeping in mind that two of us will not be here at the next meeting. We will be ending our term. So you'll have three brand-new council members who, that discussion could go very differently, and you may want to make your presentation or at least get the materials. I guess we can do that to them as well to be able to review.
Any other members in the audience wish to make comments on non-agenda items? Anybody online?
Mayor, we do have two folks online, but neither hand is raised.
No. Okay, I'll close public comment. Thank you all for a well-presented presentation. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are generally administrative in purpose and execution, and are all enacted with one vote. If any member of the council wishes to pull an item for discussion, please let me know. If any, I see no council people. Anybody on staff? No? Anyone in the audience? Brian? Wait, you're going too fast. Edward? Edward George? Mary? Mary and Paul. Okay. Can I have a vote on the remainder?
I move approval of the remainder of the consent.
Thank you. Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
and Mayor Carlskin.
Yes. Okay, now we'll take item 8E. Resolution to authorize city manager on behalf of Lincoln to enter into a memorandum of understanding with community development partner. I guess as the finance director.
Well, I think maybe Byron, it sounds like you probably have a question. So, because they're all the same item, just different names, and so maybe we could just directly answer that question.
You know,
Oh, yeah, they are.
Trying to sneak in here tonight unnoticed, but that didn't work. I was lightheaded cold, so I don't want to try to get anybody any sicker than I am. And actually, and again, however the council wants to do this, it's basically the same question for all 8 items that we want to keep jumping back and forth, basically, is, I read all the information, for those who don't know on these. It is, correct me if I'm wrong, it is the use of funds, from the COVID, from the government, in order to, help various cities like Lincoln, try to help fray the costs and undo the things that had happened with the COVID. Each one of those has a different number associated with it. E, for example, has 500,000. G has 200,000. M has 150,000, and the P has 50,000. If you add all those numbers up, it comes up to $900,000, $900 million. Excuse me, thousand.
I wish it was million.
Yeah. I would like that mistake myself, yes. Essentially, my question is this. Most of the items were fairly clear in the way of where those funds would go for example, one dealing with administrative, well, let me go with the easiest one, I guess, is the efficiencies and monies for the library. And by the way, I want to point out that whoever prepared the list, I think they did an excellent job in trying to prove our point where these monies could indeed help the city. And the only question I did have on all of these is my particular interest, I'm sure it won't surprise the council any at all, is the last one, which is 8P, has to do with $50,000 for the McBean Baseball Stadium. And I was hoping to get clarification because on that particular item, it really didn't state what the money was going to go for. It simply stated that it was for that, but it didn't have any information whatsoever. So I'm kind of clueless at this point as to what upgrades this money is to be used for. My primary concern is, as most of you know, the McBean Park Stadium has had many, many upgrades since then from various organizations donating funds to them. There is literally only 2 items left at the baseball park that I can see. I don't want to speak for the entire disability group, but I pretty much have covered those. And those 2 items have been waiting for 7 years in which to take place. And I know that $50,000 is more than going to take care of the seating in the bleachers at the park and a couple of the disability places that are all the way up against the fence and the wall. So I just wanted clarification to make sure that with, $900,000 going out there for various items, all the other items that are on here and listed, none of those have anything to do, can be, but have stated nothing to do with accessibility for the disabled community. And I would hope out of that $900,000 that at least those 2 items could be taken care of, and hopefully we can put this issue about the ballpark being available for everyone in the community, particularly including the disabled community. Thank you.
Just for clarification, your only question is you really only have a question on 8P, none of the other items?
It was just the manner in which it was presented. The other documents and items that I went through, there were specifics as to what it was going to be used for and how that was going to happen. And unfortunately, on that particular item, there wasn't any specifics at all. So
The intent of the $50,000 for the McBean Stadium upgrades is for a new scoreboard.
Yeah, so one of the requests, a couple of things I want to add. When the city received this federal assistance a couple of years ago, the mission and direction from city council was really clear. We only want to use these dollars for things we couldn't otherwise afford to do. So what you see a lot of cities doing is they took this money and they absorbed it into their general fund and they offset cost and they made the budgets look a little bit better. or maybe spend it on a really big project, one thing. And council decided to sort of systematically split it up into various buckets and, to be honest, give away the vast majority of the funds to nonprofits and businesses and provide support to some of those organizations that were really suffering. So one of the kind of late stage requests that we got is from the Friends of McBean. They are starting a major capital campaign to put in a new fully electronic, scoreboard project, and it probably will cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 or $500,000. But they kind of view it as one of the last remaining pieces to make that stadium really feel like what it is, a real baseball stadium. And so in discussions with them, we recommended to City Council that they submit some, essentially it's a seed allowance to get the fundraising going, and the remainder of it will be raised with the community like they've done most of the other projects at that ballpark. More specifically, though, to Mr. Chapman's question, two things. We did conceive that it's possible. We don't want to put forward any amount of money if the project actually doesn't come to fruition or there's not major, fundraising progress. So we may include in agreements that we have a clawback provision that if, certain milestones aren't met, we'll take that back and we'll invest it in the park in some other way. But more specifically to the couple of languishing ADA issues at the park, we have money in our operational budget for those upgrades. And Mr. Chapman's right, they're not anywhere near a $50,000 price tag. So that's the idea. And we're going to this is simply to obligate dollars at this moment, which is why Anita wrote it non-specific, because it may be next year this council allocates it towards some other purpose at McBean, but we're required by the end of this year to obligate the money. And so we have to say generally where it's going and generally what it's going to do, but the specifics of that may change. And the actual drafting of the dollars for the scoreboard project will also come to City Council so that you can hear the detail from them in particular.
And the only point of clarification that I would make is with this MOU that the dollars would need to be used for a McBean upgrade of some sort. They couldn't be used for another purpose.
Correct. And the decision, the actual expenditure of the money has to occur in 26.
Yeah, so all the funds have to be expended by December 31st, 2026, in some way, shape, or form. So this is obligating the funds in order to meet the rule of the U.S. Treasury to be obligated before December 31st of this year, 2024, but then we still have time to actually spend the funds.
And one other little tiny thing, just Mr. Chapman's question reminded me of something. When we did the business grant program about a year ago, I'm almost positive, Nita, maybe you have a better memory than me. There was at least a handful of businesses that used some of those grant dollars to do ADA improvements within their buildings or things that they couldn't otherwise afford. And so this gave them an opportunity to fix that ADA issue that they never got around to fixing. So there has been some of that that's gone towards that purpose.
Okay.
If I may, Mayor, just to follow that up. What I'm simply trying to show is a contrast of having $900,000. And the city manager has on many occasions has stated that the city does have funds in which to take care of that. And yes, it's not even close to $50,000. But I've been tracking this for 7 years. And the last time I figured my math is the ADA is a civil rights agreement, the federal government. And that pretty much trumps just about anything else that you can put up there to spend the money on other than ADA. And this is one of those items that is so small, it pains me to come up here and have to address it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Since, in general, all of the items were the same, and there was a concept of the MOU, I'd like to take questions on any of the items that were pulled, any additional people. but I would like to treat them all as a single item again and take a vote. Is there anybody that wishes to comment on 8E,
G, M, or P?
right? Those. If seeing none, nobody online, I'll entertain a motion,
Yeah, I move to,
except the remainder of the
EGMP.
second remainder.
I'll second.
Motion on the second.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskent.
Yes. We go to the next major heading, which is public hearing. We have several public hearings. The first is to conduct a public hearing and waive first reading and introduction by title only of ordinance 108, amending section 216 of 50, powers and duties of the city manager. Ms. Wachter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just simply, this is a bit of cleanup language in our municipal code. Currently, our grant policy does give the council the authority to delegate the ability to sign grant documents and grant agreements and grant amendments and such to the city manager. However, there is a section of government code that restricts that authority only to the city council and the mayor specifically, and that it cannot be delegated to any other person without that authority or the ability to delegate codified in the municipal code. So we are requesting that you open a public hearing and waive the first reading of this ordinance, which would amend the municipal code to allow you to delegate the signing authority to the city manager.
Okay. Any questions? I will open a public hearing on this item. Anybody wishing to make testimony? Please raise their hand. Seeing none, anybody
No,
online?
no online.
I will close the public hearing. I will say I heartily agree with this. Because the grants are really at this stage a very administrative item. And I think that's where we ran into the problem. We're a bunch of grants, so. No, I think there's no reason to have the city manager or the city mayor have to sign them. So, any other discussion?
No other discussion. I would assume that it also means that at any time, the council could undelegate that authority and bring it back if they felt.
If you had a
But- and
rogue
for-
city
Yes,
manager.
for any grants, that we bring forward, we request permission to delegate to the city manager, pretty much.
So you'll do them one at a time? They won't-
Yes,
okay.
yeah, so
Right.
this ends it a blanket delegation.
Correct.
We still would bring the grant applications forward asking for that authority to be
Perfect.
delegated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Move
Motion,
approval of the item.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner?
Public hearing?
We did.
Yeah.
There was no
Everyone is-
testimony.
all right. Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskent.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is to connect a public hearing on Resolution 2024-256, approving changes to the master fee schedule and regulatory fees. Again, Ms. Packer.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So this item is just a little bit of cleanup in the master fee schedule. So we did bring the master fee schedule before you just a few months ago, really. And we are now on a regular basis of bringing that before this governing body annually for an adjustment to the CPI index. But from time to time, we find little tweaks that are needed in the schedule in between those annual updates. And we will be doing a comprehensive reevaluation of the master fee schedule at the 5-year mark. But this, again, is just a small cleanup. You'll see that we are increasing a deposit fee And in order to, the reason we're doing that is the work required of a lot line adjustment is a lot, and it is a very expensive process. And at the moment, we only have a $3,000 deposit, which means that engineering and planning can only get so far in the process, and then they must stop. They must hold a halt, reach back out to the applicant and request more funds. And that takes time, and it slows down what is already an arduous process. And so we were asking for a bigger deposit so that we can complete all of our work and then move it on to the next step without having to stop and ask for more funds. And of course, if we come across those incidences where a project is just a slam dunk and it's not going to take $5,000, we do have the authority to request a smaller deposit. It's just harder for us to request a larger deposit right out of the gate without it being in the master fee schedule. And then also we're lowering the golf cart registration from $50 to $30 to help with one of our next items that we'll be bringing for you.
Okay, any comment? I did when I was reading and thinking about this. Is there some sort of a schedule that you could put in there for, I thought about that, a lot of the deposits based on age region. Based, but it's not that because it's really complexity.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
many
because
bad-
some of them would be based on acreage, some of them would be based on complexity. Some of the amounts do have a range, but some of them just require a base level of work where here's the amount that needs to be deposited. So we do try to build that
But this
flexibility
is
in where
the,
it's,
this is a range, but
Yeah.
we're approving an upper deposit range.
correct.
Okay. Any comments from the audience? Any surveyors out there?
Public hearing.
We would
Mayor.
ask you to open a
I
public
mean,
hearing.
it's
sir.
public hearing. Open public hearing. Anybody wishing to make statements or provide information? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Now. Yes, if nothing else, I'll accept the motion.
Move to, on,
Report 256.
yeah, thanks.
Oh, we're here.
2024-256.
I'll second.
A motion and a
you.
second.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriana,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
and Mayor Carl Skint.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is to conduct a public hearing and waive first reading and adopt by title only ordinance 1083B, adding Lincoln Municipal Code Chapter 10 regarding the operation of golf carts in the city, and further finding the ordinances exempt from environmental review. And I guess Christine's.
Thank you, Mayor Carl Skint. Yes, I decided to accept the laboring oar from Officer Brett Schneider, although he is here tonight.
Yeah.
If you have any technical questions regarding how this proposed ordinance will be administered in the field. So what is before you is an ordinance enacting Lincoln Municipal Code, Chapter 10.80, regarding the operation of golf carts in the city of Lincoln. We all know from driving around town that golf carts are a very much embedded, beloved component of the transportation plan in our community. And so we believed it was time, also in conjunction with the speed survey that is the next item on, and then also the redesign of some intersections that will ultimately be necessary in order to allow for better transportation between some of our golf communities. So this is sort of part one of what is a 3 or 4 part process. So this is the first step tonight that's before you. Essentially, this municipal code section will just be exerting your authority to make changes to your golf cart transportation program, which was enacted several years ago, actually under special statute from our legislature here in California. It establishes a permitting process to ensure that golf carts that are being operated on the streets of Lincoln reach acceptable safety levels and are maintained and safe to be operating. It establishes safety criteria for golf cart operators, so basic levels of safety training that they have to be willing to agree to. It establishes a permitting process, as you heard from this prior report, of $30 so that when someone purchases a golf cart, they actually have to get it inspected and permitted through the city of Lincoln, which is going to be a relatively straightforward process. Actually, I think it's an online program that's going to be developed for our community. And then also articulates the enforcement mechanism by ordinance so that so violations of the ordinance can be processed as an administrative citation of our municipal code. So with that, I will entertain any questions from council, but would invite you to open up the public hearing, take any testimony, and then ask you to waive first reading and enact the ordinance as provided to you.
No, go ahead.
Any member of the audience that wishes to provide testimony, please take the podium.
Again, my name is Brian Faircloth. I'm speaking on behalf of myself this time. And there was something that was right turns were going to be on red, were going to now be illegal. So I don't know if there's anybody from the Sheriff's Department could do that, but when that comes law, that'll help I think the safety of a lot of the golf carts and stuff where people are just making right turns without actually seeing the golf cart coming because they literally don't stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further people raising their hands, nobody on board, I'm going to close public hearing.
The issue of right turns on red is not part of this ordinance. This is
Absolutely.
simply governing the use of golf carts in our community.
Okay, further discussion. Christine, you said that the permitting process is going to be able to be done online?
Yeah, so we
It
are.
doesn't require, it doesn't require a physical.
It will,
review?
but it would involve getting the permit, securing the appointment to make your inspection. So it's
Yeah.
not like a business license
get-
that we
it's
have
not-
now, right?
Yeah, so we're looking for a very streamlined process. We met with Officer Snyder and also Jen Brown from IT, and I think what we're going to be doing is rolling out a program where they're able to utilize iPads. So should an officer see a golf cart that needs registration and doesn't have it, once this ordinance goes into effect, that the first step would be to say, oh, well, you need to register, and here's an iPad where you can easily do that online. And so we really want to make it as user-friendly as possible. We'll have a portal on our website. They'll be able to pay their fees online. They'll be able to set up their inspection and do it in a streamlined fashion.
No further questions, comments? Up to motion.
Okay, I move approval of ordinance 1083B.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Andriana?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskin.
Yes. Next item on the agenda, conduct a public hearing, waive first read, and adopt by title only ordinance 1084B, an ordinance of the City of Lincoln amending section 105610 to the Lincoln Code establishing speed limits. You don't look like Ben.
I don't know. I'm Roland. Roland Neufeld, engineer for the city of Lincoln. Here to talk tonight about the 2024 update to the speed limit throughout the city. So I'd like to do a brief presentation before opening the public hearing, if I might. I'll start by explaining or do a little refresher on the rules that we have to follow in order to establish speed limits, and then we'll jump into the proposed speed limit changes. So the California Vehicle Code stipulates how we are able, as a local jurisdiction, to establish speed limits within our city. And that is done by determining what's called the 85th percentile speed, which is the speed at which 85% of drivers are traveling at or lower than. And then you take that number and you round it to the nearest 5-mile-an-hour increment, and that becomes the posted speed. So very strict on that. The vehicle code does allow for a 5-mile-an-hour reduction if warranted, and that could be anything from a park along the side of a roadway, or the roadway is a bicycle route or something that we can use our judgment to then take that 85th percentile speed and reduce it by 5 miles an hour. And then the last thing I'll say on this is that they need speed limits need to be re-upped every 5 to 7 years. So that is why we are here tonight. To look at 45 road segments that were surveyed this year. So of those 45 segments, 34 segments will remain at the same existing posted speed limit that they are now. 8 segments will have a decrease in the speed limit. 1 segment will have an increase in the speed limit. And 2 road segments did not previously have established speed limits, so we'll be doing that for the first time tonight. And then I've got a little note down here saying that 33 of the 45 road segments had that 5-mile-an-hour reduction that I just described. So here is the list of the 11 streets that have proposed changes, and I'm not going to really jump into this because I've got maps showing this a little bit better, but I've got the street name, the segment limits on here, the existing speed limit, and then the proposed speed limit, but all that information will be covered starting here. All right, so we'll go numerically. So we've got little numbers there, and we'll start with 1 and go up. So we'll start with that pink line there. Number 1, it's Nicholas Road between Airport Road and Nelson Lane. So this is our one roadway that is looking to increase in speed from 45 miles an hour up to 55 miles an hour. This is a predominantly rural road out to the western city limits. There are no driveways fronting on this roadway. There are a couple of just access roads that residents do use to get to their property. So this would be the one increase. Going to number 2, which is that yellow line, it's Aviation Boulevard from Nicholas Road up to the northern terminus of the road. It will be a decrease from 45 down to 40 miles an hour. Jumping over to number 3, the green line is Waverly Drive. This is one of the roads that did not have a previously established speed limit on it, and that speed limit is looking to be set at 35 miles an hour. Moving over to the right side of the screen, the orange line is a segment of Lincoln Boulevard from 7th Street north up to the northern city limit there. It's a decrease from 55 miles an hour down to 45 miles an hour. 2 more screens just like this. This one has 5, 6, and 7 on it. We'll start with 5, which is Joyner Parkway from Moore Road down to Sterling Parkway. Would be a decrease from 45 down to 40 miles an hour. And 6 is another section of Lincoln Boulevard from Sterling Parkway up to Ferrari Ranch Road. Would be a decrease from 50 to 40 miles an hour. And then over on Sterling Parkway, a decrease from 35 to 30. And the last slide here, got 8, 9, 10, and 11. 8 is Industrial Avenue between Athens and 12 Bridges Drive, which would be a decrease from 55 down to 50. And you've got number 9, the yellow section on the left, which is 12 Bridges Drive between Industrial and East Joyner Parkway, would be a decrease from 45 down to 40. Jumping over to 10 is 12 Bridges Drive between East Ridge, up the hill, past Rossi Lane, down to Stone Ridge Boulevard, a decrease from 50 to 45. And I want to just touch on this one real quick. There was some residential requests to allow golf carts to travel between Sun City and Casa Verdera. In order to make that happen, 2 things need to happen. One is that speed needed to come down below 50 miles an hour per the vehicle code to allow golf carts to pass or to cross 12 bridges. So this would enable that first step to happen, right? We'd get it down to 45 miles an hour, therefore golf carts could cross. The second step will be coming to council hopefully in December, which would be an update to the golf cart master plan that would include Casa Verdera, or that section, the public roadway approaching Casa Verdera to allow golf carts to travel on it. Okay, so this is step 1 of 2 for that. All right, jumping back to speed limits. The last section is number 11 there. It's the green line, Ridgecrest Drive between 12 Bridges Drive down to Nissinan Valley Drive. And that is the other road that did not have a previously adopted speed limit on it. So that is set to be 35 miles an hour. All right, that was fast. So with that, I will turn it back to you to open the public hearing and then waive the first reading and enact the ordinance. And happy to answer any questions.
Before I open the public meeting, I want to say that that's the best presentation that I've seen on speed limits for our knowledge in sitting here. The graphics, much better than we've seen in the past. So keep up the good
Good.
work.
I'm improving that.
Oh, it's good. Thank you.
I'm sure the GIS department saved you on that, but anyway. Okay, I'll open the public hearing.
I just
I-
had,
yeah,
I just had
okay.
one question. The speed limit on Waverly, that didn't have a speed limit before because that's where it connects to Independence, right? And that's a new road there?
That is a new road
Okay,
there. And
yeah.
that project development did not establish the speed limit for
Okay.
that street. So it was effectively 25 miles an hour, which is not a viable speed limit
Right.
for that type of roadway.
Right, great, thank you.
And I have to admit, I didn't trust you that the driveways out onto Nicholas didn't exist. I had forgotten that that became a frontage.
Is it frontage road, right?
I'm still thinking back to prior to that, so I've got no issues. I'm pleased to see that we're reducing speeds far more than we're increasing them this time around. I think that's going to be a benefit to pretty much everybody.
Anybody wishing to make testimony? One.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, it was a nice presentation, but I disagree on the pink. As it is, we're trying to have people reduce their speed because they're already going over the speed. So if you're gonna put it to 55, they're gonna be going 65. I think you should still keep it at 45 after the pink. If they want to go down the ravine, then that's up to them. Yeah, that's out on Nicholas, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
I will state regarding that segment of roadway on Nicholas Road there, because it's a two-lane undivided highway section there, it can never go above 55 miles an hour. The vehicle code stipulates that two-lane undivided highway, we can keep that locked in, never hitting above that threshold of 55 miles an hour.
Well, I
Okay.
think a couple of things are going to happen.
We didn't close public
Yeah.
hearing.
Any other public comment? Anybody online? Close the public hearing now.
A couple of things I believe are going to happen. One is eventually that property on Nelson and Nicholas will be developed. And depending upon how you set that up, ingress and egress, it could potentially reduce the speeds there. And the other thing is that this stretch is just before the city limits and within, well, as soon as you cross Nelson, you're effectively in the county, the unincorporated county. That hopefully will change in the not too distant future, but in the here and now, that's what we've got. What is the speed beyond the city limit?
I believe it's 55 going up over 65, over the overpass. Yeah.
Well, that's all the way down, but within range of our city limits, within the first 500 yards, do we know what the speed?
It's 50 or 55. I don't remember exactly which one.
50, we should match it.
I'll look into that.
Any other comments? Question?
No.
Okay, I'll accept the motion or the discussion. Any?
I'll move approval of ordinance 1084B.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner, Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
and Mayor Carlskent.
Yes. Now we go on to general business. First item on that is 10A, Resolution 2024-257, approving the establishment of one college intern position in the Public Works Department. Specifically, solid waste.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. So I am here presenting on this item. We are seeking to establish one college intern position with the Public Works Department Solid Waste Division. The proposed position will be funded using a $20,000 grant, which the Solid Waste Division received via the Senate Bill 1383 Local Assistant Grant Program. Proposed position will enhance the Solid Waste Division's ability to monitor, track, and report on the reduction of short-lived climate pollutants as required by Senate Bill 1383. Establishing a college intern position for this work allows the City of Lincoln to train and mentor potential future employees while also giving them experience in a critical environmental protection effort. This concludes my report. I can now answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the council?
I think it's really neat that you're getting some interns and getting some help, and it's kind of like apprenticeship program. I love it.
Okay, any members of the public wishing to comment on this item?
Oh, no.
No hands, nobody online?
Okay, I'll bring it back up for discussion. I don't think anybody doesn't like intern
I
programs.
think it's great.
I know of a few others that would be like, me, please.
When you were my age, you didn't get paid for it, but that's the way it is, so. Extern.
Extern, yeah.
We could arrange that.
That's funny.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'll accept a motion.
Adoption of resolution 2024-257.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta.
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskent.
Absolutely. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2024-258, authorizing the transfer of funds 8920 from Lincoln Crossing Special Bond Refunding Bond, Special Tax Refunding Bond, Series 218 to Fund 2400 PFE Transportation for the repayment of already done work.
I decided the podium for this one. So I'll start off by saying that this item is the culmination of 2.5 years of work, since essentially I started with the city. When I started with the city, one of the primary objectives that Sean gave to me was we have to clean up the bond mess that was resulted and identified in the JLAC audit. And there were several bond issuings that were involved in that. And we have been slowly chipping away at them because they're not easy. They are not easy projects. It requires that we do research into old projects, talking to engineering, talking to our finance colleagues, talking to IT, digging through records with Gwen and Dia and Leslie. So this is a group effort to try to dig through all of these documents, find projects that were actually constructed with the funds as we thought they were, and then do the research to make it a package that it is auditable and verifiable. This is the last one in a long list. This item before you is to pay back PFE Transportation Fund 2400 from Fund 8920 CFD Lincoln Crossing Special Tax Refunding Bond. So back in the early 2000s, bonds were pulled as part of the Lincoln Crossing project. Those bonds identified specific projects to be completed with those bond funds. We were able to determine that those projects were in fact completed. However, at the time they were constructed, that the city did not utilize the bond funds to actually pay for them, that they were paid for with other sources. And so this is the final item to make Fund 2400 PFE Transportation whole for those projects in excess of $11.9 million. And I think with that, I will take any questions.
Any questions?
No questions, just a huge thank you on this one. I know it was incredibly heavy lift. I continue to be stunned that a bond was taken out and not used, and other city funds were used. It
Me too.
just stuns me that staff didn't catch that in multiple iterations along the way, but I'm very grateful that you have and that you've cleaned it up. Thank you.
I think, are there any comments from the public? Seeing none.
Mayor, just one addition, technical. I don't know if like I don't want this to be lost on anyone, but this completes the JLAC. Just be super clear. Done.
That's what I was.
Filed away.
Heard. First of all, I hope that when you hired her and told her, you told her it had to be by the first meeting in December of this year.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep, for sure.
The real thing for the general populace, this was part of the JLAC audit. It was was identified as a problem within the city 8 years ago. Well, before that, actually, but it's been worked on theoretically, or tried to be worked on, for at least 7 years. It's only the last 2.5 years or so that any traction has been made, any solutions have been done. It is an extremely arduous task. First of all, because it's old data, 20 years old. Second of all, this city was not a well-oiled machine in those days, and things fell through the crack, and this is part of it. The bonds and the bond documents have to coincide with the allocation of the funds, and those documents for each bond are like this. Huge amount of work that has been a background task, and sometimes achieving 100%, but most of the time a background task for 2.5 years. Or our current assistant city manager. It does complete for 3 of us. Were there when we got the JLAC audit. Some of you were absolutely blown away, and it's taken that long to complete it. All of the easy things, well, it costs a lot of money, but we're done fairly early. It's this whole bond thing. There's 12 or 15 of them, 12, I think, bonds that have to be straightened out, where the bond money was sitting in the account, and what the bond was supposed to pay for had been paid by other things, other funds. So I am so proud, so happy. Good time to leave. So I will accept the motion.
Happy for you, Mayor, that this got taken care of before you retired. Thank you, Nita and staff, so much. Really appreciate it.
So,
Oh,
you know,
geez, I'll do it.
Yeah, please do.
Motion to adopt resolution 2024-258.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriana,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
and Mayor Carl Skint.
Yes.
Said yes or no, you already had 3 votes, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nita.
Thank you, members of council.
Next item on the agenda is adopt resolution 2024-259, authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase order for a fire truck, a fire enforcer type 1 fire engine for $1,050,000. That does include $56,000 for, so it's under $1 million.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Anthony Mejia, Deputy Fire Chief. I'm going to be giving a presentation tonight on the fire engine purchase recommendation. The objectives I'm going to cover tonight is going to go over our replacement needs assessment. I'm going to cover the 4-year purchase timeline, discuss the proposed fire engine purchase, review the justification, and then I'm going to give a recommendation. So the replacement needs assessment, the engine that we're looking at replacing is going to be the 2018 high-tech fire engine. That's the brand of the fire engine. That's our fire engine that's at Station 35. Currently, right now, it has 75,000 miles on it. That's excluding our idle and pump time. Fire engines spend a lot of time idling in between calls, and then also pumping fires. That doesn't accumulate those as well. So currently, this is our only high-tech brand frontline fire engine that we have in the fleet. And this qualifies for replacement by our fleet division's grading standards. Our fleet division does a great job at trying to do some measurements on what is needed for replacement. They do a lot of different things to qualify that, and this meets those standards. So 4-year purchase timeline. We went with a Pierce brand. That's a fire engine that has a 4-year build time. That 4-year build time came from 2020, kind of during COVID times. We had a 550-day average build time for all of our fire engines. But due to supply issues, factories shutting down, and then literally a lot of the ARPA funds and different funds that came into all these different cities and fire districts, we all started to buy fire engines at the same exact time. So that really put us back out to a 4-year build time. So what we're looking at is that 2018 high-tech that we're looking at replacing. In 4 years from now, that's going to be 10 years old. It's also going to have an estimated of 110,000 miles on it. That's excluding that pump and idle time that I was talking about, which is really going to put it past the point of due for replacement. This extended build time is going to require us as a city and a fire department to start ordering these apparatus way in advancement. So the proposed fire engine that we're looking at doing is going with the Pierce Enforcer Type 1. This engine was selected by our apparatus committee, which is made up of captains, engineers, and firefighters. They've been meeting for months. They've been going over different vendors, different options, different build prices, and really have selected this one. This is what the main reason why we kind of went with the Pierce Enforcer is our other 2 fire stations, 33 and 34, already have this as our frontline engine. And coming from my experience, for operational efficiency, we want to make sure all of our engines are the same. From everything from driving them, from pumping them, and making sure all of our equipment are in the same compartments. I'm telling you, this is the good choice. And so they went through it and selected it, and I agree with this. This new 2028 fire engine, it will cost us $1.1 million, and that is going to include contingencies. So the justification for this, first of all, it came from the apparatus committee, but is also backed by our command staff. Fleet Services also recommended this, moving forward with this purchase of this new Pierce fire engine. The replacement cost was already included in our approved budget for 2023 and 2025. By making this purchase up front, we're going to have a prepayment discount of $171,000. In our fire engine replacement planning, this is going to ensure that we're going to have apparatus ready for when these other engines start to time out. This 2018 high-tech, once it gets replaced by a new frontline engine, we're also going to put it in a relief status so it can start relieving some of those other engines if they have any other problems. And again, standardizing the frontline apparatus, this is going to improve our overall operational efficiency. So the recommendation is staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase order for a Pierce Type 1 fire engine from Golden State Fire Apparatus for the total cost of approximately $1.1 million, including the contingencies. End of report, and if you have any questions.
Any questions?
Thanks, Chief. This is your first presentation for this council, right?
Second one.
Oh, it's second
Yeah.
one? Okay, that's right. Oh, yeah. You did an update. Yeah. Well, thank you.
No problem.
Very well done. I love fire trucks. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, council's already approved the budget item
Yeah.
for this, so this is simply approving the purchase moving forward with that. So when would the transfer of those funds happen? And is it all at once? Is it broken up?
Yeah, so it does have to be a single advance payment, and that'll occur after this this resolution. We'll open up a purchase order and get the invoice from Pierce for the piece of apparatus, and then we'll cut the check. So around Thanksgiving is my guess.
Sounds good.
And we save 170,000 paying upfront
Correct.
instead of installments or whatever. I'm like,
Yes, instead of doing the payment plan, you save
okay,
money. That's the way they
that's
do it,
awesome.
yeah.
That's good.
And from a budgetary perspective, we prefer that because what we don't like is year to year, we have to
roll
keep
that.
showing this liability of $1 million that would be going outbound, but it's not. So like future city councils might say, oh, there's $1 million there. Let's go do blah.
That's good.
And so do we hold this apparatus in reserve, or do we surplus it? And
So yeah, this apparatus that we're replacing currently right now would go into relief status, but during this 4-year period, it's going to be our frontline engine for 35.
but you'll hold on to it for a while?
Correct, yeah, so afterwards, I think we'll relief engines will get close to about 150,000, depending on the wear and tear that they have. So we're hoping to keep it in relief status for quite some time.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Is 10 years a good life cycle?
Yes, 10 years is about the average industry standard for the life cycle of a fire engine. Depending on wear and tear, and I think going with the fleet services and them kind of combining us, they're doing their own grading system. So if we have something that presents itself to show that it's running deficient, or it's actually running more efficient, has less miles, we can actually get some more time out of it. So the 10-year window is kind of a ballpark, and then we would kind of zero in as it gets closer.
And the price appreciation, is it standard inflationary? Is it more?
So-
Is it like construction, which has been a lot more than?
Correct. So pre-2020, fire engines were costing us right around $700,000. So the last 4 years, we're pushing close to 1 million, so a little over 1 million. So we don't know where the industry's headed. We just all know that we're really buckling up for something that continues to increase that we can't keep up with.
Okay.
Well, and I also wanted to say, I really appreciate how, and this is something that I'm seeing with all of our staff, that you're thinking ahead, right? Because of how long it takes to get these things. You're not waiting until the truck is broke down and you're like, oh my gosh, we need a new truck,
Right.
So I really appreciate that forward thinking, that forward planning. Makes our job easier, but thanks for that.
Yeah, and I think in the future, we're going to try to create actually a full apparatus replacement plan that's
Right.
going to march out all the different apparatus. So then that way we have a really good forecast of what's coming in years to come.
And you can stabilize the budget cost because you could start accrue, if you have a plan, you accrue. You're not hit with a $1 million here.
Correct.
Or $2 million.
Right.
here. So that's a great, I think, path to be on, is a replacement plan that you then fund.
The great path is to have the revenues to fund it.
I understand.
We
that.
didn't for many,
But
many years.
you get, somewhere you have to come up with $1 million. Okay?
Somewhere.
You either do it a little bit at a time, or 1 year, you have to come up with $1 million. I'm saying that from a revenue standpoint, you're better off doing it a little bit. No, you better save for retirement, because hard to not go anyway. Anyway,
Just as a side note, Chief, have you ever seen the fire truck out at Beale Air Force Base, the one that they used to put out
With the
aviation
cannon
fires?
on the upper deck.
No, I haven't.
So if we ever get 30 million extra dollars, we need to get one of those in case of, that thing is like the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my
It can
life.
be operated by a crew of one.
Oh, awesome.
It's-
Yeah.
It's like something out of the future. It's awesome. Yeah. I'm like, we need one of those.
I don't think talking about buying fire trucks that can run for by one person is a good discussion item.
We're just dreaming here. We're just talking.
Mayor and council, if I could, I would like to add just a perspective from the Public Works Department, just for your understanding. The fire engine fleet, it requires a lot of maintenance, and we actually have one of our mechanics fully dedicated to keeping these engines on the road. So it's critically important that we get, reliable equipment in the queue, because those trucks are continuously needing extensive maintenance, just as our garbage truck fleet requires that kind of maintenance. So to keep these services on the road, that relief status, that relief fleet is important, because we have routine maintenance and breakdowns constantly on the fire fleet and the garbage truck fleet.
I don't think you have to convince us, Matt, but thanks. I appreciate that.
Thanks for that insight. Okay, no. Hmm?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I asked for public.
I don't recall, it was so long ago at this point.
Yep. Public have any comments about our $1 million fire station? No comments?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I move approval of item 10C, resolution 2024-259.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Second.
Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskint.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is city manager reports.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One thing I wanted to just put on city council's radar, probably mostly be for the next city council, but one of the things that the city agreed to as part of the grand jury report that had to do with the Titan missile site was to appoint a member of the city council to sort of stay up on it and attend those meetings, et cetera. And obviously Bill was, or Councilmember Lauritsen was our person that did that. And so I don't think that there's probably a whole lot that is coming up through the remainder of the year. It'll probably start in earnest next year, but just Gwen and I have added that to the list of committee appointments so that somebody can take that duty since we agreed to do it. And the other one is we're also have agreed to sort of quarterly updates to the city council about how the Titan committee is moving along. And to date, we really haven't had to do like formal ones because we are already kind of updating almost every other meeting or so. So you'll probably next year, now that Bill's no longer with us, we'll probably have a more structured quarterly update of how things are going. And I might even ask the Army Corps themselves to come and present. So that's one item. The only other item, I'm going to kick it to Christian, and I hadn't talked to them about this before the meeting, but do you want to plug your downtown meetings?
Tomorrow's the big day. We have a stakeholder meeting at 10, and we have the community workshop at 6 p.m. downstairs in the first floor community room. So looking forward to starting that off.
And that's all I got.
Committee reports.
Oh, I think it was council initiated.
You jumped?
business first. Yeah, council initiated business first.
Hmm?
It's.
Oh,
turn it
okay,
around.
council initiative.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I flipped the
You know,
page.
Mayor, I just wanted to make one mention, and I'm not sure if we were going to do anything at their next meeting, but one other person that we lost was John Fett. And we didn't mention that earlier. And so for those of you who don't know, John Fett was a resident of Lincoln for a long time. He was the chair of the Economic Development Committee. He did a lot of work to, utilize as much commercial space that we have, and he was a go-getter, and sometimes we had to rein him in a little bit, but he was a good friend, a good man, and he fought a long battle of cancer, and really gonna miss him. And so I just wanted to mention him and I know Sean sent his wife flowers from all of us, which I appreciate that. And I think he has a service coming up pretty soon.
He does. I'll circulate that. It's in December. And we have an idea that we're going to bring to city council about a different way to recognize John moving forward.
And what I always crack up, I love about John is that he was a good friend, but he got on this kick a long time ago of, he thought that it would be a great idea to sell the airport so we could fund the fire department before he learned that, we can't sell the airport and we're not going to anyway. But it was funny because Councilmember Joyner would tell him something and say like, John, you can't do that. And he would get all mad and ruffled. But when I would tell him, he's like, okay, Holly, okay, I understand, So I'm not sure.
Well, John used to be my neighbor for a lot of years, and those conversations took place in the middle of the street
Yes,
sometimes.
yes.
They were good conversations to have.
They were, yeah. It was funny though. They would lock heads and then when I would tell him something, he'd be all sweet, like, oh, yes, yeah, I've learned, I know, I'm sorry. And I'm like,
Until the next time.
till the next time, John, I love you, but man, and then one time I had to tell him, because he got on this kick about moving the rodeo. He thought like, let's move it someplace else. They have a great land. We'll find someplace for them and then we can utilize that for, hotels or whatever. And I told him, I go, John, you got to stop saying that to the rodeo people because you're making it sound like the city wants to get rid of the rodeo and we don't. He goes, oh, no, I'm not. I go, I know what your heart is. I go, but you got to quit saying that because you're getting me in trouble. But I loved him. He was a good friend. I know he was a good friend to all of us. And so thanks for sharing the service information, Sean.
Yeah. I always when I think of John, I think of the Energizer
Yes,
Bunny.
the bunny,
Yeah.
that was him.
I was always going. I was always chasing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with respect to council-initiated business, I don't know what people's thoughts are on this. I'll share my own. Obviously, I'm not going to be here after the next meeting, portion of the next meeting, but I think this is worth discussing and exploring. If I were going to be here, I'd need a lot more information. I'd want to be able to run down the numbers that are in this resolution before I would ever be able to consider voting on it and make sure that they are accurate. And I think I'd want to get Ryan Ronco in here and review this with him, whether it's in a workshop or what have you, just so that everybody is extremely well informed about what's going on.
Same thing, I think. That maybe the right thing to do is to suggest a workshop in the future. Not the next month or two. Because you're starting up.
Yeah.
Pretty big crew. And it is an interesting thing, and it's hard. I think, coming from Placer County, and being fairly involved with the Registrar of Voter and the Elections Office for the last 12, 15 years, and looking at their safeguards and everything else, and how they clean their things. It's hard for me, thinking locally.
Ryan's office is incredibly well-run.
Yes.
But this is statewide.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's hard. It's hard to well, maybe it comes just a philosophical thing. Our purview is not to control the state of California. At the most, is control Lincoln and maybe Placer County. And I think we handle our elections really well since we don't do any. And they handle it. No.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, I think it's well worth, since it is, it's such an important item, well worth the expenditure of council time in a workshop setting, and then out with our resolution, if you did your resolution.
I agree. Yeah, I think we will. Thank you.
Okay. Any other council initiative business?
I'll just go ahead and comment on that too. That I agree that it's worth the workshop and it's worth the discussion, you know, and that Ryan Ronco and our county that's super good. You know, I have been involved like you, but as the way that I've talked with Ryan and I've taken a look at the way that they do it, seen some of his presentations, you know, I'm not worried about it. But that doesn't mean we don't take time to talk about it and maybe not just talk about it here, but in conversations abroad too, that we might affect a change at some point.
But what I think is really clear, at least to me, is that this is really a citizen's proposition that should be going on the statewide ballot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they know that and they're looking for support for that from us and surrounding jurisdictions.
Just a quick question. So is the generalized direction that we want to do a workshop on this and try to loop in somebody from the elections office at the county to lead that? Because to be honest with you, Christine and I, we could write up something, but this is not my area of expertise, at least.
I think it's going to be up to the new council,
Yeah.
what they want to do.
Okay.
But if I have any say in it, I'd want the numbers validated somehow, find out who their experts were, what the data is, be able to review that so that we know whether this is something that is valid and worth pursuing, and then loop Ryan into it at whatever point you feel is appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, but revisit it like late January.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have thought for 3 weeks on coming up with a really, really sticky item for the city council to handle in a few months, and I can't do it.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I have no council initiative. Committee report.
I just have one. Mayor and I had a LISWA meeting last Friday, and they're moving forward with plans for the expansion and the budget and all of that. But we had a very pointed conversation about what we expect from the general manager and West Yost and what they're doing out there. And so trying to make sure that we are not paying more than we should, that every dollar is being spent wisely, that they're staying on track. And so something we've been concerned about. So we had a very pointed conversation, and so we're monitoring very closely. And
Okay.
yep, so I don't know if you want to add something to that, but
No.
it's going well, but it's just, you know, we had a change over in the general manager, and he knows what he's doing, but there were still some lingering issues from before, so we made sure that stopped happening.
So this may be your sticky item.
Yeah, the sticky item.
So how are we feeling about the JPA? Is it still serving us? Is it heading in the right direction?
I've had my questions. And I've even kind of voiced to Sean, I'm like, well, you know, maybe we just go back, but there'd be a lot of unwinding, but I don't think we're at that place yet. I think that we're gonna give it a chance to see what our general manager does with the new direction he's been given. And with Jacobs coming on as the company out there, they're doing well. They know what they're doing, but it's just making sure that the tasks that he has are getting done, and that our wastewater treatment plant is a priority. So, yeah. And the mayor and I have had many conversations about, you know, who's going to sit on that board. If it's not me, I mean, I still plan on staying, but if it's not me, who of the new council members would be the best fit? We want to make sure that we keep a tight rein on that. So.
Very, you asked if it's performing its function. Yeah, I think it is. It's coalescing the part of the process that should be separate when you're doing a regional thing. From that standpoint, no different than if the execution is less than I expected, which it is, that can be handled. Okay, it's not the JPA or the concept of the JPA. I don't believe that anything's failing there. I might be wrong, but the execution, remember, part of the reason for starting that was to focus a group of people on processing wastewater, having other groups of people concentrate on collecting. I still think that's valid. The other thing was that by nature, and actually because of cost, it never got the management oversight that it deserved to get. And that should never happen in a JPA. That oversight should be there. Okay, of the operating contract. And the construction contract. And if that's, we have a failure there. You don't throw out the baby with the bathwater to solve the problem you're having. The problem's not conceptually or physically the JPA. You can look at the video. Please, someone.
That was closed session.
No, I thought
Oh, you had some good, yeah, that's true.
anyway, so that was a list. We also had a LAFCO meeting. The LAFCO meeting was originally set to look at two MSRs or universal services resource. Their studies on how you're providing service. There was one for fire and one for Roseville. Neither actually got handled in the meeting because they ended up being very rough drafts. We did approve an extension for Lincoln or Village 5, Village 7. There's 20 acres of freeway that need to be accessed. And we haven't got the surveys completed for that. So we extended our time to get that in, the time of Lincoln. The next meeting is a special meeting on the annexation of Village 5. I think that's the only committee since the last meeting. Information items?
I could do a quick committee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
report. That's all right. Attended the SACOG Transportation Committee meeting. Nothing generally applicable to Lincoln with the exception of continuing to review blueprint and blueprint projects as they're coming forward and making a recommendation to the board for the next meeting, which is about a week and a half away, to lock down that blueprint and approve the blueprint moving forward. That's important because of a couple of things. One is that our list for Lincoln has been diminished quite a bit from what we would have liked. Part of that is Village 5 has not yet been annexed, and so the overcrossing on Nelson Lane, that interchange, is not there. And that's $25, $30 million project probably ultimately. So it's not on that list. They continue to tell us that as things change on the ground, they'll go back and take another look at it. And it's a 4-year cycle. So I think, and I'll give you a perfect example of this. I think things are changing on the ground in Lincoln much more rapidly than SACOG has a sense of. And so you're going to need to stay on top of that and push it forward. And the example of that is that the only project that they list for Lincoln being completed before 2035 is a 4-lane bridge over Ingram Slough on Ferrari Ranch Road. That's already been built. And they're showing it as being built prior to 2035. So they aren't even aware of what's taking place on the ground in our communities. I know staff is talking with them. I'm not sure they're hearing, unfortunately. So I guess what I would ask of staff is in the next week and a half or so, reach out to SACOG again. That was roughly a little more than $3 million that they were showing for that project. I don't think we're going to get a new project on that list, but maybe we can take those dollars, those potential dollars, and drop them down to our next priority on that list. And otherwise, we've got no funding coming forward, at least according to Blueprint, until 2050. So we need to stay on top of them and on top of the list.
Wow. Ridiculous.
Okay, no more committee.
Well, this weekend, well, and maybe Catherine can help a little with it, but there's library, there's a lot of sales of books, and they've got an influx of them that they're sorting through for sale. I know that's also for the Friends of the Library's connection with that. You want to pipe in there?
Yes, so I think you're referring to this upcoming weekend is our Friends of the Library winter sale.
Yeah.
So Friends of the Library bring in about, I want to say it's about $30,000 a year through the sale of donated items. And their semi-annual sales are a big part of that. So this weekend, we're going to have our entire community room full of materials that have been donated by the community, and those funds go back to supporting library services and operations and cool programs.
How did the author, we had 103,000 authors present?
It went really well. So this past weekend, yeah, we had our first ever Lincoln Book Festival. So we brought in 16 regional authors. Far south is Modesto, out into the Bay Area came in, and we had about 235 attendees over the course of the morning for that program. So it was very successful. Got really good feedback from our participants as well as our attendees.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just one thing that no one mentioned, but Treasurer Pearl mentioned, just to remind everybody, if you didn't get it to make it, that we had the Veterans Day event yesterday at McBean Park. It was pouring rain. The mayor gave a really good brief speech, and actually quite a few people showed up and sat there in the cold, drizzly weather. It was pretty heartening.
Cover that under information.
Apologies.
I was surprised at the number of attendees. Number one, I didn't realize there are that many umbrellas in Lincoln. And number two, I didn't realize there were enough hardened veterans still around that just stood in the rain. So that was very successful. So other information items.
I have one for tomorrow night. It's bingo night, of course, but it's specifically Shop with a Cop. And so all the funds are going to be going for children that are underprivileged, but are going to be paired with someone in law enforcement, whether it's a dispatcher or one that's on the road or captain, somebody that is going to take them. They're going to get a sweatshirt. They're going to get a few other items, and then a $250 gift card to go shop with the cop at Target tomorrow.
The El Pal.
Yeah.
El Pal, is
Yeah,
that
yeah, that.
what you're talking about? That's cool. Bingo's
Bingo,
awesome.
yeah,
Good.
tomorrow.
Okay. I want to, since this is the last information item that I'll be able to contribute to, I'm going to do something that I wouldn't do except the last one. And that's that my wife posted something that I read and I was blown away. And I'd like to read it for the record and perpetuity, because I think it's, well, I'll read it. 1 year ago this month, I was diagnosed with leukemia. Because of my treatment, I have come to realize that just how important blood donation are for those who must undergo numerous blood and/or platelets transfusions. I want to thank anybody and everyone who has taken the time and the effort to donate blood. My illness has emphasized just how important donating blood is to a person whose life depends on it. I have been given time that I might not have had if there hadn't been donated blood. For those of you who have not donated before, I want to encourage you to consider donating the next time there's a blood drive near you. Blood and platelet transfusions are vital for many patients. When I was younger and able to donate blood, I did. But normally as a result of a friend or a family member needing it because of hospitalization or some catastrophic event depleting the existing supply in the community. I didn't realize, as I do now, there is a constant need just to maintain chronic illness and treatment. So I thought that that was a really good perspective to generate enthusiasm for donating your blood. Other than that, I have no more information to depart ever.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I doubt that very much.
Yes, I don't believe that.
The senior intern program is next.
Yes.
Okay,
Extern program.
meeting adjourned.
All right, you
All right,
two.
thank
Get
you.
out of here.